Welcome, everybody. We'll be starting this webinar in probably 2 more minutes, just waiting for some more guests to arrive. Welcome, everybody. Good morning to the ones here in Asia, and good evening to the ones in Latin America. At the Latin American Chamber of Commerce, a non-for-profit association established in 2014 and aiming to represent all industries businesses from Latin America and Southeast Asia, we are happy and honored to present to you our 2026 webinar series called Business Opportunities in Latin America. Today, in our third webinar, we'll be talking about the business opportunities in Colombia. Together with us, we have today Cesar Felipe Rodriguez, partner at Brigad Urrutia, one of the largest firms in Latin America, law firms in Latin America, and Álvaro Otero, CEO of Sociedad Puerto Industrial Agua Dulce, which, together with PSA from Singapore, operates the Buenaventura port in Colombia. Please join us to hear from the experts in the field how you can leverage the multiple advantages of Colombia. To begin our webinar, I'll give the mic to Cesar Rodriguez from Brigad Urrutia, who will tell us about the economic landscape and business opportunities in in Colombia. Cesar, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Felipe. Good morning to everybody. We are here at night, but we know that in Asia is the future. So you are on Tuesday morning. So good morning, everybody. I'm going to share a presentation, and as I mentioned before to Felipe and his team, this is a very long presentation. The idea is not to go through all the slides, but use that as a guide for discuss some topics. Of course, we can share these materials with you afterwards. As Felipe mentioned, I work in Brigad Urrutia. Brigad Urrutia is a very traditional law firm in Colombia, and we try to help Colombian entities and also foreign entities in order to do business in Colombia, from infrastructure, M&A, and in general all the economic sectors that you can see in a country as this one in development. So and Felipe, just tell me if you are seeing the presentation.
Perfectly, we can see it perfectly.
Okay, so That's the agenda. As I mentioned, I'm not going to explain in detail of the topics, but the idea is to first give you um, a general overview of Colombia, then how Colombia is compared to the other countries in the region, then have a focus on the opportunities of business opportunities that you can find in Colombia, and then discuss a little bit the country environment for 2026, and also to finalize with some highlights. So this is the first point that I want to mention. First, Colombia has shown a consistent growth from an economic perspective. And we hope that the country keep growing in a good pace. Please bear in mind that in any case, Colombia is facing some important challenges related to the inflation and the fiscal discipline, particularly from the government. We have increased the deficit of the expenditure from the government, and that's creating certain pressures to the inflation. And then the Colombian central bank needs to work out with like changing the or increasing the interest rate. So the first point in general is that Colombia is showing that it's growing, but now we will face a big challenge regarding the inflation, and we'll see what happens because, as I will mention, um, this year we're going to have general elections. First, we're going to elect the new Congress. Then we are going to face the first round for the new government, the new president. And if none of the candidates got more and a half of the votes in the first round of the elections, we're going to have a second round, which is being to be expected in June. That election cycle is a big opportunity for, um, let's say, new businesses in Colombia. Maybe you know that Colombia now is having the first, let's say, left government since many years, and that government is trying to promote certain reforms, which has caused some, let's say, troubles for new opportunities and business opportunities in infrastructure, and also doing business in Colombia. So we'll see what happened for the elections. Is too soon to tell what is going to happen, but that's a very important issue for this year in Colombia. And the other important point is that the household consumption will be a key driver for the growth of Colombia. Again, that will depend on the inflation and the reaction from the central government regarding the interest rate. Let's see some data regarding the economy of Colombia. First, we have a population over 50 million people. We are expecting a new census, but will be more close to 54 million for this year, probably. And more than 68% is are between 15 and 65 years old. The total economy will gross almost 440 billion USD in GDP. We expect to have a growth in GDP over 3%, and the inflation will be over 5%. We will see again what happened, because at the end of last year, the government decided to increase the minimum wage more than 23%. That's something that never happened in Colombia before. We have seen other cases in other parts of the world, for example, in the UK, never with this um, like magnitude, and all the economic analysis analysts are still reviewing the potential changes or pressure to the inflation regarding the minimum wage. Um, so please take into account that that figure could change. And in addition, we are going to have an average in the foreign exchange rate compared to the dollars in 3,600 more or less pesos per dollar. Again, that's depending on what will happen with the Colombian economy, but especially what happened with the United States and what happened with their reserves. That more or less we're going to have that foreign exchange. Another important data is related to the unemployment. We reach a peak regarding the employment like 6 years ago, and since then we're reducing consistently the unemployment rate, which is good news because there's more people active in the economy. That data is also, we have a nuance for that. Remember that we got a like influx or people coming from Venezuela uh, due to the regime there. And I don't know, I think that we received more than 5 million Venezuelans. So at the beginning, we saw a change in the unemployment rate, like an increase of that. And then that is something that is controlled, and we absorb our economy, absorb most of the people coming from abroad. The other data here is that we got the ranking of 67 in the country with the mid range regarding how easy is doing business in Colombia. Still, we need to do some changes on that, especially for um, legal procedures and how easy it is to create a company, and also how difficult it is to understand the tax regime, but still we've been improving on this. And finally, on this slide, and something that we will see in more detail in the next one, the foreign direct investment is still growing in Colombia. Colombia is still being interesting country for companies abroad, investing in different sectors, in financial sector, also in oil and gas, certain manufacturing, and also in infrastructure and mining. Here we can see the sectors in which Colombia has been experiencing more growth in the past 3 years. Entertainment and household services increased a lot. I think that is a global tendency on this after the global pandemic. But especially we have created more entertainment possibilities, not only in concert, but also in other kind of services. Agriculture and all the agribusiness is still growing, and we have increased our exports to the rest of the world. Public administration, education, and health is increasing a lot. In some cases, that was fostered by the government per se. Construction, we used to have a very important sector or very important group of companies um, building not only infrastructure projects but also like housing. And that's something that got some impact, but still that will be back again. And finally, real estate, which is related with the construction. We also see that Colombia has certain regions which are very strong. In some other countries in the region, you'll find mainly the economy concentrated in the capital. In this case, in Colombia, I think that the Antioquia, Santander, Valle del Cauca, in addition to Bogota, are important regions fostering the economic growth. As I mentioned, the foreign direct investments is still important in Colombia. We're still receiving money from abroad. We consider that that will change due to like the global landscape that we're experiencing, and the importance of having like interesting economy to receive investments. But basically that's being concentrated in five sectors: financial and business services. We have received a lot of investment related to banking and fintech, also some for the insurance sector. We have also receiving investment in oil and gas, despite all the discussion that we have received, and also that this particular government is not in favor of still like exploring in Colombia. The manufacturing, we have received investment for the building of certain factories and also other kind of services for the manufacturing industries. Mining and critical minerals is still fostering investment. And finally, tourism, trade, and hospitality is increasing a lot. We are receiving a lot of people all over the world, especially Medellin, Cartagena, like the best places for tourists, and also that is accompanied with new restaurants and other services for that people coming to our country. Now let's see Colombia compared to the region. First is related with the elections. We are going to have elections in the region again, in Chile, Brazil, and also we'll see what happened with the macroeconomic stability. So again, the inflation. I think that Colombia and of course Argentina is like outlier on this matter, but Colombia is a country that is working with the inflation, but it's not the best one doing that after the pandemic. Chile, Peru, and Ecuador, they did very well. We believe that that's related with and how the government is fostering the consumption and also the expense. For example, some new institutions were created. The government tried to, let's say, control or intervene more in the economy, and the effect was like that the inflation is higher than expected. In addition, it was necessary to get some additional loans from international investors, and that's also creating that pressure to the inflation. So that's something that we will see what happened this year. As I mentioned, the central bank is trying to control that, and a week ago they decided to increase the interest rate in 100 basic points. Regarding the GDP growth, again, Colombia is doing more or less well on this. It's not the best in the region. Chile and Peru have like a higher growth in GDP, and related with the population, is the largest country on that front. Um, and regarding opportunities, again, in Colombia, there is a lot of things to do, but we want to focus on these six sectors in communication, real estate, agriculture, health services, and infrastructure. Um, regarding telecommunications, we're still expanding our 5G network. Colombia is a fairly big country, so we need to connect rural places to the general network, and we are creating a like a ecosystem related with digital content. Um, in addition, we need to expand our offer for data centers. That is still an industry or a sector that is not well developed here as compared to, of course, with the United States and compared to the region with Brazil or Peru and Chile. Um, but in the last couple of years, we received certain investment from like global actors on this, and some data centers being built in Colombia. Um, Regarding agriculture, we believe that we have a big potential on this. Um, we need to solve some problems regarding um, with the like I don't know the way in which the title of the pieces of land is registered. In some cases, it's quite difficult to understand or to see for sure who is the owner of a particular land. That's one of the challenges that we need to face. But in any case, there is a lot of interest in developing the agriculture and agribusiness sector. Certain entities or foreign entities have invested, for example, in um, in in new cultives and also in certain animals, not only for the local consumption, but also for exports. Regarding on that, we have increased the exports on certain fruits and vegetables and some certified products, especially for Asia. And also we have additional investment on agrochemical and fertilizer industry, which is also related with the potential production of energy, also related with hydrogen. And finally, we have invest in new agriculture technologies related with the monitoring of weather and all the stuff. But still, there is a lot of things to do in Colombia in order to take advantage of the the space in Colombia that we can use for agriculture. Regarding real estate, although we face also challenges regarding the internal mobility in the big cities, there's still some investment in housing, not only in small projects, but also like in big developments. For example, in Bogota, we implemented a complete new plan for the north of the city, in which is built like a complete new city with schools, parks, housing, and shopping centers. And that's a change that was implemented a couple of years and now it's being built. Also, we have seen big projects in the middle of the cities that try to combine all kind of real estate, and also the financing of that kind of project is being like improved. Also, certain government entities are trying to foster the urban social housing for people that have a low income, and we've been developed offices and in general buildings with sustainable certifications like LEED in order to get like cheaper financing. Regarding the education, the government has put in place certain projects for having PPP schools or even universities. Also, we are trying to um, increase or make better the way in which the digital media is being teach to everybody how it's used, and also the employment for technical and vocational position of jobs is being fostered. Also, we have an increase for investment in private schools. We got investment from foreign entities and also um, for in general the private sector. We've seen how certain investment funds has invested in group of schools, and that's something that have helped in the development of that sector. Regarding health services, certain cities has or have created or have built new hospitals and also healthcare centers. Some of them have been specialized, for example, for cancer treatments, and other cases we have get investment to build like plans for new vaccines and also for general attention of the public. Also, we have seen certain projects of public projects using the PPP structure or in general concessions for private sector to build hospitals, and then will be administrated or operated by the government per se or for public entities. Regarding infrastructure, and Alvaro will talk more about this later, but we got like a big program for concessions uh, like 10 years ago, something like that, that we call the 4G generation of toll roads and in general for concessions. Most of those projects have been built in Colombia. Most of them now, actually, they have refinanced to be more efficient from a financial perspective. And now we are on the fifth generation of those projects, mainly toll roads. Also, we have certain projects related with the local mobility, electrical buses or BRTs, plus the metro in Bogota, the subway in Bogota. And we have a new project for a train that will connect certain points here in the center of Colombia. Um, we have tried to implement a plan for port modernization and expansion for multimodal logistics with some changes in the law for that. We have received a lot of investment related with renewable energy. We changed the law for do something very common in other jurisdictions, basically propose tax breaks for the investment and the construction of renewable energy plants that happened like maybe 8 years ago. And now we have seen many of those projects already in operation. At the beginning, were some projects like with a very small scale. Now, each of the solar farms or the photovoltaic plants will be above the 100 megawatts, And in this moment, Colombia is building at the north of Colombia in La Guajira a very big project for wind farm. That will be the sponsor for that are, yeah, AES and Ecopetrol. And it's part of a larger project. And again, we have received interest from the private sector to propose to the government the expansion of certain airports. One is Bogota. Also, the idea is to build a new airport near Cartagena, and in this moment, a couple of airports are being expanded. Um, This point, the country environment analysis, the thing that we want to highlight is that Colombia is moving to a moderate economic recovery. We're still being the impact of the structural reforms, the energy transition, and how this new digital age will change the landscape in Colombia. Also, it's quite important what will happen with the general elections, as I mentioned, that we're going to have this year. If we get a new government more interest in private projects or in concessions or in public private partnership, will be easier for the new investment in the country. And also, we are still consolidating or resilience of the economy, um, considering the challenge that we are facing not only internally but also what is happening globally. I don't know, Felipe, how we are with the time. We are almost done.
Yes, maybe 2, 3 more minutes to ramp up would be great.
Okay, so I'm going to, as I
Thank
mentioned,
you.
I'm going to send this presentation to you. But I think that we can finalize with this. First, Colombia still being a very interesting country in the region. We have received a lot of foreign direct investment. Um, there is a lot of opportunities in certain sectors, especially infrastructure and also agribusiness, health, and in general hospitality. Political stability and a government fostering the private investment will be key for this, and also the um, the stability on the rule of law. And again, we have shown in the past decade that Colombia is still growing and is a very attractive country for investments.
Great. Thank you very much, Cesar, for this comprehensive review of Colombia's business opportunities and economic landscape. I know lots of our members and the people today with us are in the telecommunication, agriculture, real estate, education, infrastructure industry that you mentioned. So for all of you thinking starting businesses or growing businesses in Colombia, you can certainly trust Brigada Urrutia services to do that. Thank you so much, Cesar, again for being here today with us.
It's a pleasure. And anything that you need, or any like follow-up question, or anything that you know regarding Colombia, uh, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cesar. Now, I have the pleasure to chat with Álvaro Otero, CEO at Sociedad Puerto Industrial Agua Dulce. As I mentioned, it's a company operating together with PSA from Singapore, the port of Buenaventura, and discover with you more about what working with people from a so different culture in a company with a different culture, different background has meant to you. Hi, Alvaro. Good evening there in Colombia. How are you doing over there?
Hi, Felipe. Doing great over here. It's a pleasure to
Nice.
to 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 be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much for being here today with us. So, just in order to give some context, can you please introduce yourself and tell us something about your background and how did you end up working with PSA there in Colombia?
Sure, Felipe, absolutely. I actually my background is in hydrocarbon, so I started working for different oil companies in different countries around the world. Moved around a little bit, and then moved back to Colombia on around the 2015 mark, and basically started a couple of companies related to hydrocarbon services and a few other things, and evolved quite well. And actually, the big change came during or right after the pandemic. The hydrocarbon business changed quite a lot, and suddenly an opportunity arose to change industries, and started looking into it, and materialized in this. So I had been a CEO for a while, but definitely this change in industry has been absolutely fantastic. It's been a whole adventure. It's a big change, but it's something that is very connected to the heart of of a country, of the commerce. My interaction is permanent with all the importers and exporters, and generally all the commerce that is happening in the country have something to do with Buenaventura, and not to say the least around coffee and sugar exports, that about 12% of Colombia's export go through Agua Dulce. So it's a fantastic interaction, and been there for about 3 years now, and enjoying it a lot.
Nice, nice, great to hear. Regarding what bring us today here, which is how Asian companies are doing or can do businesses over there in Colombia. What factors you think led PSA to choose Colombia, first of all, and then how do you think they evaluate that decision after the years they have been there?
Yes, Felipe, I think so. Just one of the main things, Agua Dulce is the biggest Singaporean investment in Colombia. So it is quite a significant project. Um, it is the main terminal. So Buenaventura is very important for the commerce because it's the only port connecting Colombia with the Pacific Ocean. So it means immediately that it handles all the trade with Asia that is happening through the maritime connectivity, of course. And so I think that's one of the relations, this connecting Colombia with Asia. That's something that is very important. That was important for Singapore. And actually, our Dulce is a joint venture of PSA and ICTSI, which is a Filipino company of terminals and the similar trade. So they saw an opportunity to join forces, and come into a country that offered quite a lot of variety. They saw something that needed development, that something that needed investment, and something that needed expertise that the PSA obviously had in the terminal business. Also, they saw an opportunity to complement their portfolio. They have another terminal very important in Panama, which they operate, and PSA has a terminal as well in Argentina, which they operate, and they're very close to us. And they have a couple of terminals they operate in the United States and Canada. And so it was a key position to strengthen what they were doing in the region. Develop a lot of what is called today not to network by PSA. It means the node of terminals that they have in an area they use as leverage to sell it to shipping lines and to general commerce to connect it to the wider network. So that has worked significantly well. It's expanding. and as I said, it's strengthened the position for them. It was a it was a bit different investment compared to many of the ones PSA had. But I think they saw an opportunity, as I said, to go into the different market when they could pose something different as opposed to bringing more of the same. The culture is very different to Colombia. It's very different, but there is a lot of junction points and a lot of cooperation points, and they understand each other despite being different, which I think ends up being very constructive because the Singaporean culture and the business culture compensate some of the things that maybe the Colombian culture is not as strong when it comes to business or planning or long-term investments. And I think that cooperation can make very fruitful results, which they could do. To finalize your last question, I think they're very happy with the investment in terms of profitability. Is one of the terminals with the highest profitability in the region, and actually on many of the other terminals that PSA has. So it's been a learning curve. It was a difficult start because of when Aventura it was building a terminal, there was jungle before, so it was a lot of obstacles that they had to go through. But once the investment has been consolidated, and actually the volumes that we did last year are record revenues, and many good numbers, so making it one of the best investments they have done, um, definitely in the region, and potentially comparing to other terminals around the world.
Nice, great to hear. Absolutely. You touched a few points I would go to. I would love to go a bit deeper. Let's start with the first part in terms of tax regulatory framework in administrative challenges. So you mentioned that it was basically a jungle. They need to start from the super scratch, um, building everything. So in terms of the administrative framework, tax taxes and regulatory and laws in general. What were you think the biggest challenges they they needed to face?
Yeah, I think when you think about going into business in Latin America, most of the countries you will see cycles. You will see cycles in the economy, cycles in the government. You will see ups and downs, and you'll see a lot of variation that you definitely would not see in many countries in Asia, or at least Singapore and other ones like that. Singapore tends to be obviously a very stable economy with a very detailed long-term plan with analysis, and something that it will be implemented. In Latin America, you have variability. And I think the key on that is trying to understand it and actually take advantage of that variability. All these cycles that you are up and down is, try to have a very steady and stable position for the turfs when your business might not be doing as well, to be able to guarantee you a higher gain when the peak comes back. So it's a little bit of change in mind, but that's something that basically going into business, you have to understand and actually look forward to taking advantage of it. So I think that's one of the main things. Within those changes, there's some things that are not always good. There's changes in tax regimes sometimes. They tend to protect foreign investments, but different governments come in and they always want to spend more and trying to finance themselves. And I think, as what Cesar was saying, that there were changes in the minimum salary, and some things that your cost is going to increase suddenly, and you were not expecting that. But then, as I was saying, if you focus on a very long-term investment plan, that is something that is critical. This is not something that you want to plan for a year or 2 years. This is something that you can build a solid structure. You will be able to hold those variations that might not be as positive, and then bank on when the curve moves upwards and things start happening, and you are competitive. You are stronger than your competition. You had this plan, this strategy for a long term, so you're ready to take this on. And this is again something that is happening the last couple of years, and we had a very strong position to bank on those gains.
Nice, great. Yeah, definitely something that happens in Colombia, but also in the rest of Latin America. In some way, we need to live with these changes in governments and other policies. But it's great to hear that you can and you actually know how to manage that and be successful anyway. On the other hand, you mentioned about the cultural challenges. Of course, Colombian culture is different than the Singaporean and the Asian one in general. Can you tell us more or less how you've lived that and how you, at the end of the day, face and try to solve this in some way?
Sure. I think as I was saying, I think is the first thing is to understand the differences. You need to understand, not try to, like we were saying, the variability. You need to understand and be prepared that it's going to be there. It doesn't mean that it will succeed, but you need to be prepared for that. And I think that's different in culture. You need to also bank on it, understand the differences, and bring something different. You don't want to bring into Colombia with the same expertise or the same business culture, because you will find it here. You can complement with that, but you can provide the strengths. And as I was saying, I think sometimes when I talk to my board of directors or my directors in Singapore and explain to them the variabilities in the government, and they say, okay, we understand, Alvaro. We're thinking about 20, 30, 40 years. We're not thinking about the next 2, 3 years. We know this is election year, for example, which is important, but we're not focusing on that. We want to make sure, as I was saying, we have a strong business if maybe the government politics are not as favorable for a while, but they know that that is going to change eventually. So when you're betting on the long term, you hold your position when things are not, when you're facing headwind. You hold your position, and then you can prepare for what is coming. I think that is something that I learn a lot from my directors in Singapore. They're obviously aware of the short term, but they're thinking about the long term. And they're thinking about the results. They're thinking about the end position. Where do they want to end? And then they go backwards. Colombians, sometimes we tend to think about the short term, the today, what is happening, what is the election, and then far away somewhere that we're thinking we might get there. While my directors are thinking the other way around, thinking about the coming from the end, from the result, and then building backwards to today, to implement the things they know that they have to be implemented today in order to reach the target that they're posing themselves.
Interesting, because I mean, sounds super rational, of course, but how do you live with that because there is as a CEO, you have direct contact with PSA here in Singapore and all the directors you mentioned, but with the middle, management, they live there. Probably they're mostly Colombian, and they, as many other nationalities and people from Latin America, they are thinking the short term. I mean, this quarter, I need to make my numbers. So how did that clash in cultures? How do you manage it?
No, it's quite nice, and actually, I used it to change the culture of the company in a very interesting way. So the short for the Sociedad de Puerto Industrial Agua Dulce is SPIA. So that's our acronym. We call it SPIA. So we have one thing that we call SPIA of the future, and so basically we sit down. Obviously, we have some um, lineup and a long-term guidance from our shareholders, but then we sit down and we sort of think about the road, and we start thinking about the future. So one of the best examples for that is that uh, we just received about a month ago the largest QC, so the quake cranes, the big cranes on the berth, and we received two, and are the largest ones in Colombia. And it's quite funny because we were trying to explain, why did you bring the largest cranes when the Benaventura channel has a limitation at the moment, has a depth limitation where blocking the big vessels from coming into Benaventura. So at the moment, they cannot come in. So it's quite funny or different, hard to explain to some of the local newspapers and business analysts. So why did you bring some cranes for vessels and boats that cannot come into Buenaventura? That's crazy, And we just say, we know that eventually they will come. So we
Wow,
build
wow.
we build a pier and we build a crane system for vessels that are not near or coming to Buenaventura. They are in the Suez Canal and they are in the Asia Europe trade, and those vessels cannot make it to Buenaventura, but we still build the berth for them, knowing and trusting ourselves that eventually they will come, and we will be the only terminal able to serve those big vessels. So
Exactly.
that's
Wow.
a little bit of the Singaporean thinking.
Yeah, that's commitment with the future and the strategy. Amazing, amazing. So, just a last question. So, what would be you being in the oil and gas? You mentioned industry, of course, in the port arena, but in general, what would be an advice you can give to foreign from Asia entrepreneurs or executive or businessman considering going or to Colombia to grow there or to start businesses there in terms of, I don't know, partners, due diligence, financing, the team you hire? Do you have any recommendation in general for people trying to do business there?
Yeah, no, I think most of the things will be very general. I think the first one is to understand the country. Don't then every country is different, and once you can start thinking about Latin America, but once you start thinking about Colombia, understand the country, understand the politics, understand the people, understand the economy. Those variables will always change, and but as I was saying, if you take a long-term look, you understand how those ups and downs and changes will benefit you. For example, it depends on that. That is going to tell you the timing of your investment. So, for example, there is likely we see a probability of an 80% or 70% change in government to a more right wing. People will disagree with that. Some people are that per se brings a lot of opportunities because there's a lot of investment that needs to be made. For example, you were talking about hydrocarbons.
Mhm.
The current government has been holding the hydrocarbon industry back through blocking the licenses, limiting, putting a lot of taxes, and all of those things. And most likely, any reasonable government that comes into power in August is going to go dive into reactivate the hydrocarbon service, the hydrocarbon industry. That's just an example. It has risk, of course, but you don't want to bet. When the little ball has landed on the black 13 already. Is a lot of people are going to start investing into that, and you can start reducing your risk, making a little bit of bets, and trying to see what is going to happen in this country that is going to change, and I can maybe make a very interesting investment or entry into the country depending of what your industry is. The same with some of the industries that we're talking about here. I think there's going to be changes in the short to medium term. So it's a lot of understanding and projections and taking taking a view of what you think is going to happen, because it will change. So that's the main thing. You have to be prepared because it will change, and what you predicted is not gonna be exactly the same, but it's gonna be most likely aligned and with some twists and changes. But that's what you need to trust. Once you need to come in, hopefully you will find someone knowledgeable of the Colombian market, someone that you can trust. They have worked in the past, works quite a lot. For example, Colombians that have worked or are working currently in Asia, Colombians that are educated, that are working in different industries, and maybe they're in Singapore and been there for a while, and they'll be happy to come back. That is usually a good person to have in your team because they understand the culture, understands the language, understands the new business, but it will go back and we'll have connections and we'll have a lot of knowledge on the Colombian industry. So that could be something interesting to think about. and of course carry out all the due diligence and understand the legal implications and all of these things. But that is when you're not thinking about the big picture, you're thinking about the short term. Now I'm going in, I need to check all these details so I can come in, because obviously you need to make sure you're all the credentials and all the papers and all the whatever it is that you're purchasing or going into, it has the right documentation.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Alvaro. We ran out of time. It was a very interesting conversation. This conversation has been recorded, so it's going to be in our social media and YouTube channel of the Chamber soon. We have a few more minutes. If somebody of the crowd has any question, you can raise your hand or write it down in the chat box. I'll check. I don't know if Raul or Angela have seen any question. No.
No,
Right.
we have no questions.
Okay. If we don't have any questions, again, thank you very much, Alvaro, Cesar, for being here today. What a comprehensive explanation of the landscape. I think everybody got a good understanding of what we are talking about when trying to go to Colombia. If not, please reach out. We will be happy to help to connect you with our panelists today if needed, and we'll be more than happy to help you to go to this great country Colombia is. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening to our audience and our panelists in Latin America. Good morning. Have a really good day today, the ones here in Asia. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You.